Great. So welcome to BrainCast. Today we are speaking to Shay, a neuroscience PhD student here at Sussex. He's specializing in animal behavior, computation and tracking software, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about his PhD project. So welcome, Shay.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Great. So this episode is a little different to some of the existing ones that are already on the YouTube. So it's a start to a series that's looking into gaining insights into PhD projects, the people behind them, and some advice on how you could go and do your own PhD. I think it's really important to see where all the academics started in their career, from their own PhD to their research lab. Great. So Shay, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got interested into neuroscience?
So I've been interested in neuroscience and computers for quite a long time now. I think as a kid, I always had an interest in nature. Like I love those nature documentaries with David Attenborough and kind of things. And then I got a lot into computers and technology through like video games, and then from there I got into like other types of technology. I was interested in that. I think the bit where I decided to focus on the brain was in end of high school / college, where I was thinking, okay, do I pick like computer subjects or do I pick like more biologically focused subjects? Because I was trying to decide between computers and the brain. Eventually I decided that, oh, okay, I guess the brain, some people say the brain is the most advanced computer ever, so I'll just pick the brain. And I went the biology route, trying to do medicine and neurology and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where the point where I decided to focus on neuroscience, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, you know, we always think that neuroscience is a very biology-based course, but actually there's a lot of computation that comes into that. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I found as I'm in the phase now, I'm having to learn a lot of maths and algorithms and more computer-based stuff. So it really is helpful to have, even if you come from a biological background, it really is helpful to have a kind of interest in computers, because that's a lot of the language people use when they're talking about the brain. Even though it might be different to how computers do it, they still use that same terminology. So it's useful to be familiar with that at least.
Yeah, definitely. So can you actually tell us a little bit more about your PhD project, what you're exactly doing, and the lead up to your project proposal?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on ant navigation and spiking simulations of the ant brain. Essentially, I want to take ant experiments that we do in the lab, analyze that with some advanced AI tracking software to analyze their trajectories, to see what information in their environment is important to them when they are trying to search for food. But I also want to combine that with spiking neural network work, where we simulate areas of the ant brain in order to embody those simulations, either in robots or in simulations, in order to see if we can almost reverse engineer the ant brain to see what is going on, what are those computations doing that allow ants to forage so effectively and collect information from the environment so effectively. So that's kind of like the core of the PhD.
Wonderful. And what have you found so far? Any preliminary results? Or
preliminary results, I guess this comes from my rotations. So for those that don't know, Sussex Neuroscience is a 4-year program. The first year is a set of rotations. So these are 3-month, like three-month projects. And they allow you to get a good feel for a lab or a type of research. So even though I'm technically just starting my main project, I already have some work. So in one of my rotations, I worked on modeling, the spiking neural network modeling. That was my first time ever doing modeling. So it was a bit like I had quite a few worries where I was just like, I have no idea what's going on here. Like, I don't know how to, I didn't know enough maths to know what some of the people in my lab were talking about. But I was able to link it to what I did know from my neuroscience experience and kind of link it together. So in one of my rotations, I made a model of the ant brain, specifically the mushroom body. So the mushroom body is a region that's really important for both olfactory, so that's smelling memory, and visual memory. In the ants, of course, it's mostly focused on visual memory. So I made a model of that and then fed in images of a ant route, like a foraging route, and saw if it was able to pick the correct angle of travel along the route. During my rotation, it didn't do that well. It did okay. It went in the generally correct direction, the model did. But I found after collaborating with another student here, a roboticist called Amani, she was able to put that into a different environment and was able to follow a route quite closely. So that was really exciting, because that was before my main PhD has even started. There's something interesting happening. We have a model that we know works okay. So I guess lots of my PhD, which I'm about to be working on, is going to be building on that model, making it a bit more biologically accurate, adding maybe some more realistic visual inputs, and just seeing what's going on in that model. So that's where I'm at right now. I guess I've also done some ant experiments in my third rotation where I could get a feel for the lab, how that kind of works. And right now I'm looking at ways of tracking multiple ants in a way that we can make the lab experiments more efficient and speed up that process. So that's where I'm at right now. And of course, got 3 years to go, so got plenty to do, but that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Great. That sounds really, really cool. So who did you have your first rotation with?
Yeah, my first rotation was with Thomas Novotny. So
Okay.
Professor Thomas Novotny, he's in the School of Informatics. He's actually got a very, very wide range of students right now. So he's got some students on the spiking network side. He's got some students on the more machine learning, so machine learning applications for spiking neural networks. And he's also got an experimental student who's doing electrophysiology for software. So yeah, he's got a wide range of students.
Great. And then you're also with Miguel Maraval and then Paul Graham. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my second rotation was with Miguel Maraval. So that was working on something very different with mice navigation, as you know well.
Yeah.
And then my third rotation was with Paul Graham, working on ant navigation in the lab. So my supervisors for my PhD are Paul Graham and Thomas Novotny, but with Miguel, worked really well with him in his lab. So I'm still doing a bit on the side for the Mice Maze project, which I actually got to visit the other week to see how the maze has progressed since I was working on it, and it's going very well. It's very exciting. There's a lot of cool circuits going on that are moving different parts automatically, so that was cool to see.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. I saw them recently, so I got to kind of Yuri told me a little bit. Yuri's a research fellow at Miguel's lab. He's made some moving parts in this maze for animal tracking, just for the guys watching. But yeah, I mean, you got to do quite a big range of labs for your rotation, because you kind of, what you wanted to do is you wanted to combine kind of elements of all three in your PhD project, which is really, really cool. I guess that's just like something to look forward to for the people watching, is that I guess you don't have to just stick to one lab. You can take inspiration from many people and kind of collaborate. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. what I've enjoyed at Sussex is there's quite, in the areas that I'm in a way, there's quite a lot of freedom to mix stuff together and collaborate with different people, and things have just kind of naturally come together for me, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, so lots of people might think you have to, if you like modeling, you have to stick to that and just stay in that, and you're kind of in that for the rest of your life or career or whatever it is. But it is really good to mix things up, and I've found a lot of insight from talking to my more mathematical or computational orientated colleagues. They've been able to give me a lot of insight, and I've been able to help them as well on some of the more biological and more basic neuroscience things. So yeah, it's always good to mix. It's good for you as a researcher, also good for your colleagues. And in my mind, it makes things a lot more entertaining, because I think what can happen, what I've heard from some later PhD students, some of the difficulties can come when they're just doing the same thing like every day for like 2 years or something, like a year or 2 years, and they can kind of lose sight of the big picture. But with my work, I often am able to, since I have like 3 main areas, I'm able to just go between them. Of course, with communication with my supervisors, but I'm able to just kind of go between them. So if I get really tired of one, I'll just be like, okay, I can move on to the next area for a while, and just keep developing these areas and see how they mix into each other, how they feed into each other. So it keeps things fresh and interesting as you're going along. So that's what I like about the interdisciplinary research.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that, you've spoken to some PhD students, and there seems to be kind of like a brick wall people hit during their PhD, or, it is quite, labor intensive or time consuming to do a PhD, the full 4 years. How have you found that your work balance has been?
Yeah, so work-life balance in a PhD is quite difficult, because a lot of the onus is on you. I sometimes joke with my my course mates, saying that it almost feels like being a artist or something, where the amount that you get out is the amount that you put in. So it's not like necessarily like the kind of job where you put the work in for the day and then you leave and go home. Because of course, in those jobs, you might still be thinking about the work, but you're not necessarily always under pressure to be working. And there can be that attitude to just be continually working and working. So my work-life balance, it's been up and down. So often in my rotation year, I would start the rotation and I would get a bit stressed, because I'll see everyone working. I might see people talking about getting stressed and all that kind of things, and then that would affect me. But then eventually I settle in and I'm like, okay, I can just go my own pace. And once I start to go my own pace, then I'm fine. I can normally make sure to schedule some time that's not work. Also, my wife helps me to, to just not be working all the time. So that kind of thing, having someone, whether it's a relationship or a friend or someone to help you do that, that's always important. So yeah, it's been up and down, but it does take some control and some self-control to stop working, or to make sure you're spending enough time on other things important, not just your PhD.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah. Takes a while to get into the rhythm of it, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. Just getting into a rhythm and into your own schedule, and not spending too much time comparing yourself with other people, because I think that's the mistake I made at the start of my rotations, is I compared myself to other people, and it sometimes was silly, because it's like, oh, they're stressed, and then you kind of like, oh, should I be stressed? And it's like, no, wait, I don't need to be stressed. I can just get on with my work and just enjoy it and take it at my own pace. Yeah. So
yeah, that's some really good advice. And So while you've also been a PhD student at Sussex, what kind of opportunities have been presented to you? Because you recently went to Japan over the summer. How did you get
Yes.
onto that, and what did you do while you were in Japan?
Yes, so that was the Okinawa Computational Neuroscience summer school. So that was at a place called OIST, so the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. And essentially, it's an application process to get onto the summer school. It's a fairly competitive program, but if you have, it's generally kind of like you would apply to a PhD or a internship. It's that kind of application process. And so I had applied to some of their things before, some of their summer internships, but I never got on. But this year, I had a better CV, I think, where I also got on the British Neuroscience Association Scholars Program, which has been a massive help to me with my applications. I think I've only been able to actually get accepted to things after I got into that Scholars Program. Of course, some of that may be timing and coincidence, but it's definitely been a massive help, that Scholars Program. I can talk about that a bit later. But the summer school was essentially lots of lectures on some key topics in computational neuroscience, and then workshops on tools. So they'll actually give you practical workshops to help you work on the NEST simulator or the neuron simulator. Lots of popular simulators used in computational neuroscience, and then some talks on some more different subjects. We had, to break it up, we had one talk on like black holes from a space scientist, which was kind of cool to break things up. So just lectures, and then we also had a project. So we had, in this 3 weeks time, we had to make a project and present it on top of all these things. So it was very, very intense, but also really fun, and got to know some really cool people during it who were also taking the course, and discuss with them and just have fun together too. So it was a really great course, really gave me some motivation in terms of incorporating computational techniques in my PhD, and was great to meet people and discuss their projects, my project, and just getting some ideas. So really inspiring trip.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting. I'm sure, loads of people would love to go to Japan. But especially, being surrounded by a lot of people that have such great knowledge into these topics must be really, really inspiring. Did you say?
Yeah, it was quite inspiring to meet people at some people at my stage, some people a bit above, but just see some of the differences, some of the similarities. I know there was I talked a lot with someone from, I believe it was UCL or KCL, but I might have to make sure I remember him, remember which place he's working at, called Tom. And we work on similar things in terms of, we're both interested in navigation and things like head direction cells and place cells and that kind of thing. But coming at it from completely different perspectives. So he's a lot more mathematical and computational, and I came up with it from neuroscience. So I came in, of course, I was just like, oh, I'll just use a spiky network for this. And then lots of people, he would like question me, like, why would you use this for that or this for that? And I was just like, I guess I didn't think about it, because I was just like, in neuroscience, you have these connections, you replicate this structure, and it seems to work for me. I was just like, this is great. But it was great to hear this problem analyzed from a completely different point of view. So that was really cool. And it was nice to meet the researchers. I also had, during the time you're there, you're giving a kind of like project, a project supervisor. And I had a absolutely great supervisor who helped me through, taught me how to use a brain simulator, which is another commonly used one, and really helped me grasp the concepts really quickly because we didn't have much time for the project on top of all the other stuff. So he helped me grab that really quickly. And yeah, it was a really great experience. Also, the environment was amazing. So it was like on the beach, like really close to not on the beach, but really close to the beach, and really beautiful weather. Well, it seemed to me, they said it was a rainy season, so it was a bit of a, rainstorms coming in occasionally, but it was a really beautiful island, very, very far south of Japan, so quite far away from the mainland. So that it's not very highly populated island. So it was really nice to occasionally for a break, I would just go on a walk and see the greenery, the like tropical plants, and see the blue sea. It was like crystal blue. So a really great place to do some research. And I did get a bit jealous of their facilities. They took us up to the main campus so we could see all the facilities, and it looked amazing. Kind of looked a bit like a villain's lair at times, though, because I was just like, wow, this is pretty crazy. But yeah, that was a really great experience that I'm gonna carry with me, and I would definitely recommend people to give it a try. It was very, very inspiring, and makes me hope to link with some of those researchers I've met. Yeah.
And would you recommend people apply to these programs even if they're worried about not speaking the language? Or how was your time? Were you completely just on campus in the research facility, or did you go more into like town areas? How was it?
Oh yeah, so in this case, it was more about being on campus with people. So most of your time is just spent with the other researchers. And I guess I didn't think about that. So lots of these programs, if you're used to just the UK and you've never really traveled further than the UK, you don't actually have to worry about language with almost any of these courses, because the international language for science is English. So even though the course was in Japan, everything was in English. All the information we needed, all of that was in English. We did get 2 days off during the program, so we were able to actually go out into town and do stuff. A few of us went to visit like an aquarium and botanical garden, and then people did other things on another day off. So on your day off, you can go into town and try and see what the local culture is. But in general, lots of these programs are just focused around being with this group of people, and they'll all speak at least some English, so you'll be fine. There's some other programs that are in other countries, either Europe or farther afield, but if it's a science course, you generally don't have to worry about the language barrier. And there's normally be someone there who can speak the language to take you through if you're worried about going to town. I thankfully speak some Japanese, so when we went into town together, I was okay. But there's a lot of other people who did as well. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. So you mentioned the some scholars program or scholars thing. Could you tell us more about that? Sorry, I just can't remember the name of it.
Oh yeah, the BNA Scholars Program. So that's run by the British Neuroscience Association. So they do a lot of great work, from organizing conferences to helping like promote better ethics in science, whether that's more open science or whether that's figuring out better ways to assess a scientist's impact. They do things for equality and diversity. And one of their programs, the BNA Scholars Program, it started up by, they saw that in the UK, there's quite like a very, very low amount of ethnic minorities involved in neuroscience. And they wanted to launch a program to help this, and not just in a kind of, we'll just throw some money at something and hope it works. But they made a program where you apply and then it's a selection process, like many of these internships and programs are. I was selected as one of the inaugural scholars for the program. And essentially it's a mix of mentoring and conferences and lots of things that help engage you with the neuroscience community that you might not have the opportunity otherwise. So with the mentorship part, I have a mentor called Catherine Peridin. She is an auditory sensory neuroscientist who is now working in industry. And with discussions with her, she's able to give me advice on my career path or work-life balance or lots of different things in neuroscience. And that's helpful to have someone to go to for like some questions you might not want to talk with your supervisor about. And that's quite helpful. But also they are able to fund your trips to conferences. So I've been to, I think, is it 3 or 4 meetings / conferences that I would never have gone to if it weren't for the Scholars Program. So there was a international, a European neuroscience conference in Paris, for example, the FENS conference, and they were able to fund my trip there. And for example, and that's something that it's just like, I would see it. I used to see some of these conferences and I'll be like, oh, that would be cool to get to, but just never can, or just never am able to find the time or put together money or anything like that to go. So you're getting these opportunities to go to these places, meet these other scientists, discuss ideas, and this interaction is a key part of becoming a scientist, is what I'm told. A key part of becoming a successful scientist. So they give you these opportunities and help you out in the goals that you want to achieve. So, and as I said, it's been great for my applications too. So it's been a great thing to put on my CV that I can be proud of, that I've managed to get through this selection process and can now put it on my CV for lots of different applications. So yeah.
That sounds really wonderful. Like, I'm sure, you know, everyone as they go through kind of education and the lead up kind of entry into career, we all could use with a mentor. We all could use with someone that can kind of, you know, let us know, you know, are we on the right track? You know, because I think a lot of people, like yourself included, you have doubts about, you know, how things are going, what the future may be like, and it's also always helpful to have that kind of support to keep pushing you forwards and forwards, would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are definitely a lot of worries, and if you just, it's not good to focus on it too much because it can distract you. But yeah, there can be a lot of worries in academia. I think constantly see these things maybe on academic Twitter or on news articles about how stable is it, how to get funding, all of these kind of things. And it's good to have someone who can talk to you about these things. Always good to have colleagues, but also and course mates, but also a mentor that you can talk through. One thing that I've had to think about is, okay, I think I want to go to academia long term, but do I have a backup plan for industry that I would want to go to if I see something interests me or I need to do for more stability or things like that? Because with academia, you may have to move around a lot. You may do, not everyone. Some people are very fortunate they can stay in the same place where they want to, but some people, they feel like to advance, I must move around. And so one thing I've thought of, like, that has encouraged me into the computational field is that when thinking about, if I leave academia, what kind of job would I want to do? And that's encouraged me to do more computational things, because I thought, okay, if I do leave, I think I would find it more interesting if I go to a company that's to do with that's interested in like rendering or robotics or that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So that's where
definitely.
interests are. So I thought, so I'm kind of, my PhD is a mix of my neuroscience and my computational interests that I would like to do in the future, whether I have to do that in academia or in industry.
Yeah, definitely. And something I wanted to ask you as well is, why did you decide to do a PhD? Why is it that you decided on Sussex in particular? Because obviously, you're mentioning that, you've got this kind of backup plan of going into industry. Why wasn't industry like your first choice over, say, academia?
Well, I think in terms of why I chose to do a PhD, it's because I wanted to be able to explore, essentially, and kind of like freedom to explore and ideas and gain training. So starting with gain training, I did a neuroscience undergraduate degree, and I had some self-taught programming skills from the summer before my master's, summer before my honors project, and then my master's project. And I just kind of taught myself how to code in Python to do things. And I was just like, okay, I know I wanted to get into something computational, but then I was like, okay, I want some formal training on this, and I'm still really love neuroscience and want to explore that. So a PhD seemed quite natural as a way to gain training while exploring something I'm really interested in. And I've just been wanting to really explore, find out new things, and advance my skills, because I didn't think about going into industry straight away, because I wanted to gain some skills and mastery in something before I move on to industry. Another reason, I've been fascinated by the way the brain in different animals and environments can represent the environment, and how information is from the environment is used to drive behavior. So that kind of led me to Sussex, because I saw Sussex has lots of sensory neuroscientists. And then I saw, they also have roboticists and people who are interested in mixing the two. And that's kind of what drew me here. I applied to some other programs in different universities that are focusing in similar areas, but Sussex, which was a surprise to me, had actually most researchers in the area that I'm interested, which is this mix of sensory neuroscience mixed with ecology, mixed with robotics. And that's what drew me to Sussex and to apply. Before that, I didn't actually know Sussex was a centre for that. I knew Sussex had a decent amount of neuroscientists, but I never knew that it was had so many people working on this area that I'm particularly interested in. So that's how I ended up at Sussex.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, Sussex has so many neuroscientists, and they all do such broad, different areas of neuroscience. You've got the computational side, like you're doing, and then there's also the can't speak today, pharmacological side, and then the psychology side. So it's all even, would you say even if something you were doing came up, I actually want to do something slightly different in neuroscience, you've got that avenue to just move across and do something else. Yeah, that's what's great about Sussex. I would agree as well. Yeah, and my final question for you today is, what advice would you give to people that would like to do a PhD? Say they're an undergraduate now, and they're not quite sure if they want to do a PhD, or they're thinking about the application process, or what they should do, what project they should pick. What advice would you give them?
So in terms of advice for undergraduate student, there are a lot of things to consider. But one thing I would focus on is focusing in what you're passionate about. and letting that come out in your applications and in your interviews. So one thing that I really focused on is that I was just like, I'm really interested in how the brain takes information from the environment and does something with it in 3D vision or whatever. But if you say you're interested in something, make sure that that comes out in some way, whether it's a project you've done from that you made up yourself just to investigate it, whether it's reading that you've done, whether it's just a YouTube channel that talks about that a lot that you're really interested in. Just show that in some way. If you're thinking about whether a PhD is for you, you might want to think about either doing a research master's. So that's a master's which is focused on a research project, which gets you a good feel for what a PhD is like, because it's a lot of self-defined research and timings, and seeing whether that's good for you, and then thinking about how much you like in terms of independent work, because a lot of PhD work is quite independent in a way that you can define your own timetables, define your own project even. So thinking about whether you like that kind of work. And also, when you do go for it, or if you do go for it, to just make sure you enjoy it, because like it's your PhD at the end of the day. So it's very easy to get sidetracked into things that might be interesting, but they're not actually what you really want to do. Sometimes that's useful for like side projects and collaborations, but you should definitely try and find something that's actually what you want to do and that you're excited about. And yeah, so finally, in terms of programs, there are like programs that have rotations and programs that don't. The programs that don't, where you apply to a project, those are very good often if you have a good idea of what you want to do. But if you just only have a very general area that you want to get into, these 4-year programs that have the first year of rotations, which are at a variety of universities, those are great because you get a feel for different labs before you make your final decision. So yeah, that's what I'll give as advice.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming on to BrainCast. Yeah, it's been really wonderful to have you, and it's been really interesting to hear what you've done so far. Great. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next episode.